In this example, I'm going to show you how we can inject commands into a running interaction processor so that we can affect the actual runtime of the interaction um, without having to stop it or create new interaction processes. This example is based on something that Jan and Shepaz have created between them. Again, it's running on the Pico, and we get the ID, and then we're able to set a duty cycle and then read it back. So these are two completely separate commands, and we can set the duty cycle. It will then write that out to the Pico and read back what the duty cycle currently is, and display them on um, the front panel here. Now we're doing that through command injection, and I'm going to talk this through here, but I'm only going to go through the changes that have been done, as I went through in quite some detail for the instrument identification example. The blue text explains what has actually changed, but if we take a look, the what was originally the get ID button is now start. We've got the start, still action 1, and we're running action 1. We're getting the ID and we're pushing that through. We're doing the get ID to get the command directors with the right command, and we're pushing that through onto the interaction processor in exactly the same way as we did before, except this time we're setting the flag here to true, and this flag is for handling injections, and what it's telling the interaction processor to do is not stop running. So what would normally happen is once it's run through all its command directors and the command directors have all said we're finished, it would normally be done and flag that back to the interaction application. In this case, once they're all done, it just doesn't run anything. It just effectively sits in a waiting loop, waiting for commands to be injected. The only way to stop it is through raising a stop event by pressing the stop button over here. So let me run this and we can see exactly how that's working. So we run this and I start. It gets the ID, and as I change the duty cycle here, it reads a value, it sets it on the Pico and reads the value back. So these aren't directly linked, and we can stop that, as I said, with the stop button. The interaction process keeps running. So what's happening here? Well, I've created a new entry in the event loop to set a duty cycle, and that's registered on the mouse up event. So when it detects the mouse up on the set duty cycle widget here, it will run this event case here. And what we're doing is we're reading the duty cycle, the set duty cycle, and the pin. The pin is just what the output is written to on the Pico, and we're creating the commands. Good look at that, and it's exactly the same as before. We find a driver for the instrument that we've selected, the Pico driver, and this time we've got a user-defined write and a user-defined read, and these two commands expect you to enter the actual command to run, and these commands were provided by Jan and Shahbaz to actually sort of send the analog output to the Pico and to read it in. And you see we've got the write and the read here, and as before we've got a command. We save the command, the driver to the command, and save both of those into the command director, so it'll just run it the once and pass that out. We're getting the ID, but I'm not actually going to do anything with that. I'm ignoring that. So that's setting up the actual commands, and we raise that as an injection event. Now we have to raise it as an event because the interaction processor is busy running, so it's not going to be able to this message loop here is not going to be able to process anything we put on the message queue here until this finishes, which it won't do until we press stop, and if we press stop then obviously nothing else is going to happen. So in the case of interacting with the framework, we do that through events. If we sort of look at that, the raise what happens on the injection event, we have the event loop processing. Well, let's open up process directors. We have the process events loop and the main processing loop running in the framework, and this is registered to detect the injection events. And when that happens, what we do is just on the internal message queue is put a message to inject, and it's as simple as that. I mean, obviously this is all set up within the framework anyway. And on the main processing loop, the state for inject is to run the vi for inject. Let's have a look at that. So the data comes in with the event, so it's posted into the message queue along with the inject message, and we can pull that out, and it travels through as what is called a variant, which is basically any data type whatsoever. And what we're doing is converting it back to an actual command to run. Actually, back to a command director. The command director obviously has a command in it, and for all, it's actually an array of them, and for every entry we are going to add the director to the interaction processor, and the next state then is continue. So all that injection is doing is effectively supplementing the set of directors that the interaction processor currently has, and when we continue, it will check to see if anything should run. On continue, and we are handling injections, so this is where it runs through. We're handling injections, so it's going to process, and when we process, we've seen this before in the other example, it's going through and asking if the command directors should continue. Now obviously we've just injected one that hasn't run yet, so it will always continue, and it will do what we've seen before. It will process those commands, so those commands will be sent to the Pico, so an analog output will be generated, and then an analog input will be read as a result. And those results, because we're passing in a notifier, will be posted on the results handling loop, and we can see that here. We're waiting on the notification. We get a notification. If it matches the ID in the array at position 0, then we know it's the instrument ID, and we display it here. If it doesn't match that one, given what we know about the application, then it must be for the duty cycle. So we pass the duty cycle out of it so it converts it from the raw format, which is a string, into a integer value, and updates the widgets here, both these two widgets actually. And that just continues. So every time we change the value here, it will inject a new command to set the duty cycle at the new value and read it back again. Now the reason why I've got it on the mouse up event is if I just had it on a value change, every unit that I moved, this would generate a new command director, a new command, and we don't need it that often. That's quite a lot of work, unnecessary work for it to do. When we press stop, the whole thing comes to a stop and cleans itself up. So the injection event just allows us to affect the interaction processor at runtime, and we can add in brand new commands. We could add in commands that change the existing values. Basically we can change the running application to do what it is that we need to do based on interaction on the front panel. Hopefully that makes sense.